Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 163 of Petey's Awesome Guest Panel. And not just any ordinary episode, this is a very special episode. First of all, this is our season premiere. Secondly, as you can see, our regularly scheduled co-hosts are not here tonight. I have given everyone the night off because there's only one person more qualified to do this show with me and the co-host as well. Someone that has more knowledge about our guest star, much as I, honestly, and that is my big sister and strong mama 3, Alyssa.
Hi,
Great to have you on, sis.
nice to be here.
Oh, this is so fun. And speaking of why this episode's so special, let's talk about tonight's guest star. Tonight's guest star is, the reason why, that helped the boy band like franchise like with the population back in 2000 with MTV's Together and like how parodying boy bands, they were, in my opinion, the modern day Spinal Tap for boy bands, in my opinion. My guest star at this time is Mr. Jerry O'Keefe himself, Mr. Evan Farmer. Welcome, Evan. How are you today, sir?
I couldn't be with that introduction. I can't be better. Thank
I
you.
was trying so hard not to stumble my words, but obviously I failed on that one, like because I'm just so nervous, excited. I had what they call anxiety and adrenaline, so it's like adrenaline C. If
That's
you want to put
excellent.
those together, adrenaline
I'm going to steal that.
C. One of the first questions I have for you, sir, and before we get to the first question, I would like to dedicate this episode to the memory to the late great Michael Cusione. God rest his soul.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
That's really special.
and we're gonna ask the first question, but we before that, I just want to say we have a special tribute that I made personally for Michael that we're gonna air later on today. But before we
Nice.
get to that, we're gonna get dive into some questions though. First of all, Evan, this is gonna be a typical cliche question I ask every single guest star, and that is, how and when did you get your first big break into acting? Take us there.
Whew. Oh, wow. Well, actually, you know what? I'm kind of a little bit of a late bloomer. I went to college for 5 years before I even started, and I went to study. I thought I was going to be an architect. And after a couple of years doing architecture and working during the summers, the architects that I was working with came to me and were like, "Run! There's no money. You're gonna starve." And yeah, I thought about it. I switched my majors because I didn't, want to starve. And then it just kind of hit me after, I don't know, maybe another couple of years of going to school that you know what, life's too short. If you're going to starve, do what you really love. And I love performing. I love music. uh, it's funny, I'd never considered myself much of an actor, but I did musical theater from time to time in college. So but I was like, you know what? I love to perform, and I'm just going to move to New York and do it. So after college at Tulane, packed my car literally in the middle of the night and started driving north after I got a job offer that scared me because it was one of those cubicle, you're going to work in an HR department kind of jobs. And I'm like, that just sounds like living hell to me. So, I mean, God bless all the people that do it. But for me, I'm too restless. So I drove to New York, sold my car for, I don't know, just enough for a bag of groceries and the deposit on an apartment. And I started bartending, which was ironically the greatest money I ever spent was bartending school. Crescent City School of Bartending in New Orleans was worth more to me in my career than 5 years of college, probably. But that's basically how I ended up kind of pursuing it. And then the first big break, you know, there's a saying where, every overnight success takes 10 to 20 years. And that makes sense because you never really feel like there's that true crystal clear moment. I got a couple commercials and I thought that was it. I'm like, I'm in a national commercial, I'm making big money. And man, I've hit it. And then I got my agent, and my agent, I was like, well, now I got an agent. I mean, I might as well be Brad Pitt, right? Uh, doesn't work that way. And then I got my big first role in, it was an off-Broadway musical. It was the longest running show off Broadway, or musical off Broadway, called The Fantastics. And man, I thought that was it. I'm like, phew, I'm off Broadway now, baby. It's been, I don't know, what, 3 years in New York, still bartending. Um, and it was while I was doing that, 8 shows a week, that I realized I don't like doing 8 shows a week of exactly the same cookie cutter, same songs, same movements, hit your marks and everything. I just needed more creativity in my life. So I was desperate to get into television and film at that point. And it wasn't until then that I realized, well, I need to do that. And so I started really taking that seriously. And so I was actually filming, and nobody's ever asked this, but I was actually not filming. I was doing the Fantastics, and there was a vacant room above the Fantastics that the landlord at the building, the theater, was refinishing, and we could sneak up there. Me and the cast, I guess, as and my agent sent me this audition that I needed to put myself on tape, which was very unusual back in the day. Now everybody auditions by putting themselves on tape, but back in the day, usually went into the casting room and they did the casting. But I read the scenes for Jerry O'Keefe of Together, and um, oh, you know what? I'm missing something. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I take that back. Sorry. We're talking like 25 years now, 26 or 27 years when I auditioned. But anyway, um, and I went up and one of the cast members filmed me doing the audition, and I mailed it in and actually absolutely forgot about it. And fast forward a couple of months or weeks. Yeah, no, it might have been a couple of months. I was actually ready to quit the business. I mean, I was kind of tired of doing off Broadway. I didn't feel like I was making any traction, which is weird because I'd only been in New York for like 3 or 4 years, and I was just kind of restless. And so I booked a ticket to fly back to New Orleans, and I don't remember what I was going to do, but I was going to interview for some job and maybe figure out some other options. And on the way to the airport, my agent called and said, "You need to go to this audition. It's a film. It's with Samuel Jackson." And I'm like, "Look, I got to hop on an airplane." And he's like, take your suitcase and go on the way. And so I did. And I went into the room, and in the audition scene in New York City at the time, you kind of got to know all the same guys that were auditioning for the same part because we all had a similar look. We all were about the same age. And so you got this, I walk in the room and I'm just like, "Hey guys, really sorry. I'm quitting the business. I promise. Can you let me jump the line? I've got a flight. Here are my suitcases." And they're all like, "Yeah, whatever. Go ahead." And I walked in, and because literally I think I didn't care anymore, I gave the best audition of my life. And I got as far as my connecting flight in Dallas. My agent's like, "You got the part." It was the movie Shaft with Samuel Jackson. And my character was one of Christian Bale's friend in the opening scene. And if you ever seen the movie, it's actually they cut me down to a very tiny part, but you can see me in the movie. And so anyway, I turned around, came back, filmed that, and it was while I was filming Shaft that my agent called and said, "You got the part in Together, and you need to leave the filming of Shaft and fly to Nevada, where we did the recording of all the songs. We pre-recorded all the songs that were in the movie. Calculus. The hardest part of breaking up was a TV series. It was Calculus, Say It, Don't Spray It." Um, Man, I can't remember. I think that's all I can remember right now. You might actually know more than me.
Uh, Liz, do you know the song, Liz? Liz,
I just unmuted it. Uh, I can definitely look it up. We can go through it.
Yeah, the song. There was other songs that we didn't record that other people did, like "Rub One Out" was in the movie. There was was it "You're My Baby Girl"? Man, I'm showing my age. It's not just my white hair.
Hold on.
But anyway, and that was the story
you
of
look
kind of
good.
when I finally started doing like actual paying film TV work, and then it kind of went from there.
Very
So
cool.
thank you for that trip down memory lane. I completely had
Well,
forgotten
we
about
we
all of
got
it.
plenty of that. We got plenty of that, sir. And before I pass the question to my beautiful sister, and she has her question here, I just want to say that this is gonna flatter you right now. I'm gonna, at the risk of flattering you, I used to like play like back in the day in the early 2000 days. I used to play like the Sega Genesis and play like Streets of Rage, and I used to mute the TV, and I used to take my sister's Together CD. I used to play it on and just kick some ass just to groove to Together to Calculus.
That's awesome.
I
Oh
used to do that too, but to
yes,
Donkey.
yeah. See. Sis, your question for Mr. Farm.
So how did you develop Jerry's character, and did anyone inspire you?
Wow. You know, when I did the audition, that's a great question, by the way. When I did the audition, um, there was a part of me that was kind of, and I think it kind of goes to that audition story for Shaft, where I was just kind of over the whole industry, and I had stopped overthinking everything. I'd stopped caring too much about every line, every word, every breath, all the things that you put into an audition. And I just didn't care anymore. And that was the greatest thing to ever happen to me because I feel like it was more of myself. And so, in a lot of ways, for better or worse, I think Jerry was very much a highly caffeinated, more intense version of me. And I wasn't really doing much of a character. It wasn't a stretch for, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
So that had to be pretty liberating because you got to be like your own alter ego.
Exactly, exactly. And I've since gone back and that's a great way of putting it. I've gone back and kind of looked at all the different characters from Together with hindsight being 2020. And I really saw my job as being sort of every comedy needs a straight guy, in terms of like who's not, doing doing the comedy bits. You almost needed a flat sort of, overly serious person to play against the, ludicrous characters of Mickey Park and Doug Linus and Chad and they were all characters with a little bit of caricature in it, and I don't know how they did it, but they were amazing at their characters. But I really saw my job as sort of to be like the almost drama one, and they wrote me as such in the film because I read the original script and I was like, oh, well, this is kind of me. And, I was just going to play it flat. And again, it was just kind of throwaway. So whatever I did in that audition, I kept telling myself this was my first big role, really. And I was like, I just need to keep doing that, whatever that was.
Yeah.
And so the scene that I auditioned with was in the movie where Erin, who plays my girlfriend, and I are in the bedroom. And I'm basically saying I'm going to go follow my dreams, and she's like, "But what about us?" And that whole like moment where I storm out the door and I get into the car with Bob Buss and I drive off into the sunset to pursue my dreams. That was the audition scene. Again, nobody's ever asked me this, so you guys are the only ones you're the first to hear it.
Wow.
There's
Nice.
another element to that too. Just kind of a funny aside is when they said, okay, we're going to do a callback, which is if your first audition is good enough and they're like, we want to see, you one more time to kind of make the final decision. It was only a few weeks before filming started. So, I mean, they were really struggling to find the Jerry character. And I was in New York and this was an LA production. And so I remember they were like, "Hey, you're going to need to go to MTV in New York and do the callback there via satellite." And back then, and again, we're talking 1998. Back then, there was this delay. The internet isn't what it was, and I mean, it was literally a satellite that was like pointing at these different, two places, and they had to do this uplink, which was really weird because I would do the audition scene, and then there'd be a 1 second delay. It's kind of like when you watch the news and they ask the reporter the question and then they're just sitting there for like a second. They're like, "Oh yeah, the hurricane is going to be, it's
Gotcha.
exactly how I had auditioned." And it was like I was like, "There's no way I got this part." Like, I look like an idiot, And they had stuck me in they didn't have a room that had all this set up. It was literally a storage closet that they brought one of those AV TVs they used to wheel in back in my day into school. Like they used to wheel these TVs on these rolling carts in, and they did. I mean, it was the most archaic thing I've ever seen. And so I'm like, literally sitting next to a bunch of mops and a bucket doing this audition, and that was my screen test for Together.
Whoa.
So in a weird way, Jerry kind of pulled all the eccentric characters together in like a big brother way. I know that was taken by another role, but I always kind of looked at Jerry as the ringleader. Could you have seen
Right.
yourself playing any of the other characters?
No, no way. No, I couldn't. And I thought, to be fair, when I read the script, I thought I could. I mean, I was like, oh, I could play that role. Or, sure, this one should be played this way. And I remember when Alex especially came in and played the part of Mickey Park, my first reaction was like, "You're doing it." Like I didn't say this, but in my head, I was just like, "What is he doing? He's doing this all wrong." And then all of a sudden, I'm like, "Oh, he's freaking brilliant! Like he's crushing this. There's no way I would have done it that way." So it's just really funny how when you read something on the script and then when you see it brought to life from somebody else's take, how it really comes together. And it was humbling too because I was like, okay, I get it. This is what real solid actors do. And since I'd never considered myself like a very serious actor, when I got the role, it was all a big learning on the job education for me. But it was awesome. It was so much fun.
P, I'm gonna pass it to you.
Okay. Well, we're gonna take a little break from asking questions though, because we love to have fun on this show too. And one of the ways we love to have fun with our guest stars is to pay tribute to you. And actually, we have one of the clips prepared for you, sir. We actually have to pay tribute to you. I actually have a video prepared of the you plus me equals us. I know my calculus ready right now, and I actually wanted to show a little bit of it to show you how cool and how fun that you like together was back in the day, and it just brings back nostalgic memories.
Awesome.
Okay, so just let me know if everyone can see. Let me see. Alrighty. Let me share. What do you guys see? What do you see on your end? Can you see it?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, calculus. Can you hear it? And look who's starting the video.
Take me straight to seven ways. I know my happiness. It says you plus me equals up. Saint Chair from says you plus me equals up. Oh yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. Together. Trigonometry can never equal up to what you do to me. So let's integrate, don't differentiate. If you were in my class, there ain't no way I can pass. I hate English, Jim. And not to mention, I can't even afford to pay my attention. Whatever come between us, but we'll always have our calculus. It says you plus me equals
Love that suit, by the way, Evan.
says you plus me equals me. I don't our robbery and it's gone. No signs I know and a two and it's on no test about me and you know it says you plus me equals us. Said I know I love you lost. It says you plus me equals us. What's I? Me equals I. What's I? Subject comes close to you. Together, sing out. You plus me equals us. Said I know I have you plus. It says you plus me equals us.
So what'd you think?
That's wild seeing that after all this time. I forgot how many clips from the movie they used in there.
Oh, that was my favorite. And sis, you were gonna say something?
I'm curious. I wrote it down so I didn't forget. Did you get to keep anything from the show?
I wish I kept the Star Spangled Unitards. That was a that's money. I'm trying to think. Yes, but I no longer have any of it. I've done. I had a house fire in 2005, and I lost most of everything that I owned back then. Um, there was one jacket that I wore, and I can't remember if it was in the TV series or if it was in the movie that I kept for a long time, and I eventually gave that away. So yeah, I don't have anything. Man, I wish I had. Now that I think about it, in fact, I didn't even have a copy of the movie, and to this date, I don't even have all the episodes of Together. I had to buy a copy, a DVD of Together off of Amazon. They didn't give it to us. I'm
That's
like, okay,
crazy.
yeah,
There's no
it's
like bloopers or anything.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of bloopers. There was a behind the scenes thing that MTV did at one time, and I don't have a copy of that either, where they showed some bloopers, and man, they were funny. They were unbelievable. Because I mean, if you think of the people that we were that working with, like Kevin Farley is a stand-up comedian, on his other job,
Right.
and it was just a pure ridiculousness. Is it crazy as it probably you imagine it would be on set? It was that crazy. I remember there was one episode of the TV series where I can't even remember the whole concept, but it was basically Together was kind of going through a reimagination, and we were trying to become more spiritual, and everybody kind of did their own thing, and we had to come out in these white robes as if we were in some weird cult or something.
Oh man.
And let me just say that some people were not clothed under those, and there was some surprise exposure happening on camera that probably would not make it. It would not pass muster these days. But I mean, it
No,
was
probably.
we were like a family because we were literally with each other, 18 hours a day for almost 3 years straight. And if we weren't filming the series, um, and this is once the series started. If we weren't filming the series, we were filming a music video. If we weren't doing that, we were on tour. And if we weren't that, we were doing an appearance on TRL or something else. So we were living together like a real band and spending that amount of time. The same amount of time. If you've ever watched the documentaries of, and I recently did with NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and Lou Pearlman and all that. I watched it and I was like, oh my God, we were there to make fun of these kids, and yet we were doing the same exact stuff they were. We were put through boot camps, and they just filmed ours for the movie and the series. I mean, that's literally, and then our songs were funny, but we had
Yeah.
their same producers, we had the same songwriters, we had the same everything, and that's why I think the song sounded so legitimate. But then all of a sudden you're paying attention. I'm like, did they just say what I think they said? And that's what really made it work, was they just put together the pieces, and then they just changed the words to make it funny and cast us.
Was most of the show filmed in California or Canada?
It was all filmed in Canada.
Okay.
Yep. And Michael Cuccione, the youngest one of the group, who's no longer with us, and um, he was Canadian, and he was actually named Man of the Year, I think the year before he passed away. He was an outstanding human being, on top of being one of the most talented people I've ever met. He wrote songs long before, and he was performing. God, I want to say he performed with Michael Jackson, I believe. He was on Baywatch. I mean, he was a supernova of a talent. And so when you film, this is a little at least back then, when you film in Canada, a certain number of cast members or producers, directors, certainly crew members have to be from Canada. It's part of the union rules that they have and that sort of thing. And I'm really lucky because as soon as they cast Michael, I think I think they knew that they were going to be filming in Canada at that point. But yeah, we filmed in Vancouver for this TV series, and we were stationed in Vancouver for the movie, but we would film all over the place, all over Canada.
I see, and you also brought up Michael Cuccione, though. I recently made a tribute video in his honor, though, and because this year he would have been 40 years old, like his birthday passed in January, which hurts me the most, though. I remember when my sister told me when he passed away, and at the time I was 11 years old, and he was, I believe, 16, right, when he passed, right?
Yeah,
And
he
I
had
was like,
just
what
turned
do you,
16.
and when my sister told me he passed, I'm like, what do you mean he passed? He was 16. I'm like, and it's an 11-year-old me is not realizing that, like, how he passed away, and then ever since then, I made this video. It took, it took to make, but I wanted to make sure I paid tribute to him. That's why I want to get your opinion, both of you, both my sister and your opinion, Evan, on this video I made on him in his honor. And I hope that Mr. and Mrs. Cuccione are watching because I watched the documentary and the foundation. They seem like wonderful human beings.
They are, and that's really incredible that you did this. Thank you.
No problem. I'm gonna get the video ready, and you just tell me what everyone thinks about it. I'm gonna once again share screens and just let me know when everyone sees it. This is in honor of the late Michael Cusioni. Can everyone see?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm very instinctively when I was in bone marrow transplant, and I remember asking him to get me through this as fast and as easy as possible so I could start doing what I had planned to do and making this difference. One person can only do so much, but together we can make a difference.
Alone, are you feeling it? Turn to the person next to you. There's nothing that we can do together. Together. When you're hurting deep inside, don't turn away. Don't ask why. Open your heart, don't be shy. Together. Cause we are the ones saying through good. I forgive you. Simply is what we do. We're all gonna have together. We're all the one treasure together. Together. Treasure together. Yeah, gotta get it, gotta get it. Gotta get it, gotta get it. Yeah, baby. Gotta get it, gotta get it. Gotta get it together, baby. You walking down the street, smile at everyone you meet. Yeah, we're all dancing to the beat.
Every time I hear this part, it just takes my breath away. This part.
We are the one thing I forget all we do. To me is what you do. We're all nothing together. Treasure together. Treasure together. Together singing in harmony for you. Treasure together.
That looks really good.
Together.
Not yet. We're not done yet.
Well, first, before I start, I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight and making a big difference. Because, believe it or not, just by coming tonight, you have been a part on making a difference and helping me on my mission to find a cure for cancer. Thank you so much. But together we can make a difference. And together means all of you also, along with me and the support from my family and friends, we can make a substantial. One thing I want you to put into perspective. 1 minute, one day, your life is just great. It's almost perfect. And you wake up one morning and find out that you've got cancer, or your child has cancer, or your grandchild has cancer. Now just imagine how your priorities would change overnight. And how your priority would come, oh, I want that dress, to I want to live to my next birthday. Or I want to live to see the next sunset. Now just imagine how that would feel. And don't wait for this to happen. Don't wait for yourself to be put in this position. Let's make a difference now while we still can and while we still can make a difference.
So what'd you think?
It's powerful, man. That's oof.
I wanted to make sure that he was represented and presented in a most powerful way ever, though, and especially given the fact that I heard when I heard that vocal, when I like that part I said that took my breath away, that fucking broke me. Like when I heard that, when he did that, "Want you do," like that for me was like I love this song. This is my favorite song.
Yeah. Wow. That was that's a lot to take in, man.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Like I apologize. Like
No, it's all good. It's all good. You know, he was easily the most special part of the show for me, and spending time. And you had mentioned his family, his mom Gloria. We spent so much time. She was on set with him because he was a minor when we filmed it. She was on set with him the whole time, and um, man, I mean, it was. You know, we were family, like I said, but that was he was special family. And man, he had that charisma, and he was out there to do all this incredible stuff that he had too little time to do. And he fought, and he fought for all the things that were important right up to the very end. And we should all be so lucky to to know Michael. And I'm glad that the world got to share a piece of him through his character and his foundation. So anyway, thank you. That was really beautiful.
of
Really, really
course, at any time, especially like when my sister told me that, like 11-year-old me was like that floored me when I found out he passed because how could someone so talented, so young, be taken away that quickly from us? And the fact that I became like there, got into together for three ways. First of all, my sister got me into together. Secondly, I was very moved by not only your performance, Evan, but I was also I was moved by QT's performance too. Like, and especially in that Together song, it's like if there was like a verse in those songs that can hit the heart the most, it would probably be the part where you're singing like "Living in Harmony" and QT Michael's verse.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. You know, it was such a cool thing that you put together, by the way, because as sad as, the memories of losing him are, it was such a reminder of how good he was and how funny. And I'll never, just a side note, I'll never forget the first scene we shot with Michael. It was the scene where he's doing the whole kissing the hand thing. And going back to reading the script and being like, oh, this is, you picture it, because you read all the parts, right? And as if it's a book. And I'm like, oh, this is how I would do it. And I can't tell you how difficult it was to get through that scene because here was this kid we all met, and for the first time just before the scene, pretty much. And he comes in and he's just like, doing all that stuff with his hand. And then the hand goes up and starts nibbling his ear. And then I don't even know if this made the cut, but it was in one of the things. He's like, no, not now, too much. And the hand went back up. I was like, this kid is off his rocker. He's brilliant. It was the funniest thing I ever seen. And we're trying to stay quiet. I'm like trying to stay quiet when you've got this, teenager making sweet love to his hand. Oh God, it was so
E-
good.
Evan, how did you keep a straight face when he was making that concoction with food? I would have lost my shit if I saw him mixing all that stuff in there.
Man, we had, and again, that goes up to the outtakes. We like every scene was so hard. And props to the writers. Brian and Mark Gunn, who were the writers and creators of the original movie, and then they were the main writers for the TV series. Oh my God, they would write in some of the most ridiculous, funny stuff, and it was so hard to film. And of course, I'm supposed to be the straight drama one, who's not, being goofy or whatever. And so like I'm the last person that's supposed to, laugh or smirk. And I can't even imagine how they do it on shows like, Saturday Night Live with you know, all the stuff that they have to do live because we barely made it through a scene. And it
The
was,
funniest parts though are when they do break. So if there was a live action Together series, that would be hilarious.
oh yeah,
Oh.
yeah. There's no way we could have done that live. There is absolutely like there is no way. I mean, it was a single camera, which I don't even know if we could have done it as a sitcom, to be honest with you, because we just we were too goofy and there was just too many of us there to make the other person. I mean, I'm sure, and I don't remember specifically a moment, but I'm sure there was times where we were like, all right, Kevin, you need to leave the room if you're not in this scene because you're just making everybody else laugh too hard. Or, Alex or somebody else is just because it's funny material and it was just too easy. And also you do that when you're trying to kind of keep up your energy and stay in character. You kind of try to entertain everybody that's on set. And if you can make the camera guy laugh, that was like literally our goal. Because, this person and the focus puller, there's the DP who's doing the camera, and then there's somebody whose literal job is to make sure you're in focus back the way we shot it with a single camera. And if you could mess them up, you feel like you won. You may have screwed up the whole take. It's unusable footage, but you feel like you won the lottery when you could make those guys laugh because they're trained to not pay attention to what you're saying. So, yeah, it was good. It was good.
And and Evan, I just want to say this too before I pass the question on to my sister though. I just want to say I just absolutely love the humor style of the show though. Like I'll give an example. Like I'll use a reference like to Family Guy. There was a joke in Family Guy, but I'm gonna use Together as a reference though. Like I could definitely see like a scene like if me and my sister like theoretically we're part of like an episode together and we won concerts to a Together concert, and then you hear like Evan, you go Jerry O'Keefe go thank you, and I go and then you go I need a help from the audience with this next song, and we're gonna sing a cover song, and one we be like Eliza, and you're like, no, that has two syllables. And then my sister would be like, Elissa, no. Then we got Cody, and you're like, wow, that's exotic. Come on up here. And then you start singing Barry Manilow's Mandy. And as you're singing the Barry Manilow's Mandy, you go, oh, Petey, when you came and you gave without taking. You know what my response would be? I'd be like, I would never take from you, Jerry. I would never take from you, Jerry. But Big Sis, your next question.
Do you remember where you were, what moment in time when you first either heard yourself on the radio with Together or when you first saw it on MTV?
Wow. Okay, I'll start with the radio first because we were not played regularly on the radio. And we would get played when we were visiting in studio doing an interview. So I never, to my memory, and I would have remembered it. I've never heard my song or any Together song played just randomly on the radio. Um, and what was the second question?
Where were you when you first saw yourself on MTV?
Ah, okay. This is actually a pretty crazy story. So, and I wrote about this. So I wrote a book in 2012, basically about how to break into the entertainment industry, um, or any aspect of it from the perspective of somebody who really doesn't have a natural talent. Like I'm never going to be accused of being a phenomenal singer. I'm okay. But I was, nowadays you have to sing like Justin Timberlake and Mariah Carey put together. I mean, it's like amazing the talent that people are showcasing these days. And I was never going to be accused of being the most brilliant actor. And I know that because I auditioned with people like Ed Norton. They were in my sort of genre of, character or, male actors. The same parts would call out for guys like that. And I'd hear them auditioning or see them, or Zach Braff is another. And these were brilliant actors, and I was like, that's not me. So I wrote the book, um, basically about how I did it, and I treated it like a business. Um, and I'm trying to go back to my train of thought. Where was I when I first saw myself on MTV? Yes. So when I was 5 or 6 years old, this is going to sound woo woo and weird. I had this like overwhelming notion come over me. I was 6 years old, and I remember where I was sitting in my living room. And at the time, there was a show that was popular on TV. I'm dating myself, but it's called Star Search. And Ed McMahon was the host of Star Search. And I felt this need to get ready to be interviewed by Ed McMahon. I mean, it sounds weird, right? I was so certain that one day I was going to be on television or on a stage in some big venue that I needed to prepare. And in my mind, my premiere was getting out at Times Square, which was weird because I'd never been to Times Square. I just had that in my mind, out of a black limo with white leather interior, very highly specific. I was wearing a top hat because like I'm like 6, right? So this is like the vision in my head that just popped into my head. And I'm walking through these throngs of people who are screaming and cheering for me. Okay. So that's kind of weird. And it's not something I shared with anybody growing up. And the premiere of Together was in Times Square, and they filmed the premiere, and they hired this limousine to pick us up. I get in, it's white interior, which is weird because very few limousines have white like leather interior. It's super cheesy, but this one did. And they literally would drive around the block and drop us off and let us get out of the limousine and walk into the premiere, and they'd have the crowd scream for us because it was all filmed as part of the big premiere. And I realized in that moment that almost to a T, everything but the stupid top hat that I had pictured in my brain came exactly true.
You
And then
manifest,
huh?
you manifested that. You created your own path, and that whole thing happens.
Rest is
But it
history.
wasn't by choice. It was like this vision had just come to me as a child. And I was like, okay, yeah, so maybe it was a manifestation. And I remember I looked over the screen, and they have the Jumbotrons in Times Square, and they were playing our faces as we got out of the limo on the jumbotrons, and then they would cut to scenes from the movie on the jumbotron. And now that wasn't technically watching myself on TV. I was in the moment, but seeing it, it was bigger in a
It,
lot of ways.
yeah, it's the large scale of everything. You're
And
just missing the top hat.
yeah, it was missing the top hat. Like we need to go back and do that again so I can do it with a top hat. Um,
Well, luckily you could probably edit a top hat on nowadays.
right. Yeah, that's true. AI, I can get away with it. But it was surreal, and it like from that day forward, it was a form of like if you believe something enough to be true. And I mean, again, I'll be the first to sit here and admit I am by no means an amazing singer or musician. I'm an okay at best or actor. And for me to be able to do those things was next level. And then again, going back to Michael Cuccione, and you see his level of talent at that age, um, and his ability to act. I mean, it was really really humbling for me. And I realized there was never a moment in time in my entire career that I never looked in the mirror and was like, you are one lucky SOB. I mean, this is luck. A lot of it was luck or maybe manifestation, but like nobody deserves to get where they are. I think we tell ourselves these lies that if you work hard enough or you do, a lot of it really comes down to time, place, or maybe providence. I don't know, and I don't pretend to know, but yeah, that was a pretty powerful moment for me. And I remember trying to keep it together because I'm like, I'm on camera. Don't start balling now, Evan. Or Jerry at the moment. And I did. I managed to survive it, but it was pretty epic.
Definitely epic. And I want to ask you too, because another project that you have worked on too, and I recently found this out too, and this is another project that you were part of that both my sister and I are big fans of, and you did voiceover work for Daria. I was just curious to know like memories of your time working on Daria.
That was a fun gig. Now Daria started long before Together, and I'll tell you, it doing voiceover. We still had landline phones back then. You had to pick
Oh
it
yeah.
up, and it was
Oh
attached to a
yeah.
cord. And if you're super fancy or wealthy, and I was a starving artist bartending at the time, you would have a cordless. Mine was not cordless. So to audition for Daria, they would fax you. Remember fax machines? They would
Oh
fax
yeah.
you a script, and you would read that script. You would call a phone number, and you would read your audition onto an answering machine, which happened to be at MTV, and and then you'd hang up, and then you'd find out if you got the job. And I initially auditioned. I'm trying to remember. I was Daria's mother's boss, and probably too much information, but I was like, I mean, I was young, and I was like, you know what is hilarious is I'm going to audition not wearing not wearing any clothes, just to say that I did it, because it was a phone audition. And so I did. I picked up the phone, and I was you know, I was probably funnier as a result of like that stupid prank I was pulling that only I knew about. And I did. I did the audition, um, not clothes, and then they called and said, "Great, you got to come in and record." And as luck would have it, the place where I recorded Daria was up the street, so I'd ride my bicycle up the street, lock it up. I'd go in, and we go into a recording studio, and I never met. I believe her name was Wendy, who did the
Wendy
character.
Hope, I think her name was. She voiced
Yes.
Dari's mom, right?
Yep. And I never met any of the other people. It was just me and the producers in a sound booth, and we were in one of those sound booths. They call it ADR, where you can make sounds. There's like tennis shoes on a board that you could make.
I love those.
Different bells and different things, that all these sound effects around. And I would record the script, and it was hilarious. And I never really. It was almost like a throwaway. I never thought about it. I never watched it. I couldn't afford cable, so I'd go home and I never watched Daria because I couldn't afford to watch MTV. Um, and then the parts just kept accelerating. They're like, we need deputy. And so they had a character in there that would sing. And I guess I had convinced somebody by that point at MTV that I could sing, which maybe is how I somehow got the audition for Together in the first place. I have no idea. But then the deputy character had to sing, and so I started doing characters, and then at some point I became a Screen Actors Guild union member, and there's only so many union jobs you can do, um, and and they force you to join the union basically. And I'd met that threshold, and I remember Daria was non-union, and so there was a point at which I couldn't do it anymore
Oh,
legally.
sorry.
That's I'll stop right there with that story.
Um, we have another clip we're gonna show soon, but before we do, Big Sis, you have another question?
What projects are you doing now?
Good question. So in 2013, I unofficially retired from entertainment. I've got two teenage boys now. And at the time my second was born, I was producing and hosting a show for country music television. And I had also started a business that involved, it's called The Building Barn, where I created custom building and cooking experiences. And so I was starting to get involved in that. And so at the time, I just kind of had to make one of those big life decisions. Do you want to be a dad, or do you want to live on an airplane? And I chose dad, and I kind of pivoted a little bit. That's why I started the business. I also started investing in real estate, because in entertainment it's boom or bust. You're either working on a job or you're not working at all. And um, I was past the point of being a very good bartender at that point, especially since my bedtime had become 8:30. So I pivoted, and so we have since kind of changed locations. I'm actually recording this from Portugal, where I now live with my family. Um, and we just wanted to have experiences that I couldn't do while being beholden to the constant audition producing lifestyle that I was living. And that being said, I have started working on a couple of projects that just fell into my lap, and can't say too much about them now. But one's a docu series, one's a travel type show, and another is it's kind of a docu series, but it's a humanitarian. It's recording a humanitarian effort in Africa, and so I'm kind of doing those two things or those three things. And one of them, the docu series, is about all the natural disasters that's happening in the U.S., especially right now. I'm working with an amazing organization called Build SOS that helps people recover after like the Palisades fire, the big hurricanes that we get now, sadly, every year, the floods in Texas. And our goal is to help people be more resilient ahead of time and help them chart the path towards recovery after they've been disastered. I went through a house fire, which I think I briefly mentioned earlier, in 2005 and lost everything. And I'm standing on my neighbor's front yard watching my house burn. And the first question that I asked myself is, I'm like, God, what now? What? Like, what do you do? Who do you call? And Build SOS kind of came in as this organization to kind of fill that, answer that question. So to that end, their mission is to really get the word out that they exist, number one, and that they have resources to help people, number two. And so I came in and volunteered my services to try to help them get that word out. So we started a podcast, which I just started doing, which props to you. It is no easy feat. I'm just in 6 episodes deep, and I'm like, wow, this is a whole new thing for me. But it's called Disaster Diaries. And what we do is we interview people who have been through a tragedy like a fire or tornado. We've done hurricanes, and and it's really to make people feel less alone, talk about their experiences, and try to get the word out. This is what you do when it happens. This is how you cope. This is the resources that are available, and it's really good to be able to give back in some way. I feel like I've spent my career making people laugh and forget about their problems, and now this is kind of an opportunity to help them actually do something about it. And having lived through it, it really hits home. And then the next stage will be taking that and turning that into a docu-series where we actually take a homeowner um, and rebuild their house with them, walk them through all the insurance steps and everything, and build a house that's tornado proof or, fire resilient or hurricane, proof, that sort of thing. And that's our hope that we get there. But right now we just want to kind of spread the word. But yeah, so lots of things in the hopper, but mainly just being a dad.
But that's really
Beautiful.
noble work.
It is. It's
Thank
beautiful
you.
and inspiring, sir. And we're gonna take a break from the questions for a second, though. There was another clip I want to show you, though, and this clip actually is unanimous with you, Evan, because I always felt like during the time between '99 and well, everyone probably shares the same opinion as I do. That between '99 and 2001 was where the boy band parody started to reach its peak, though. And I think you guys were pretty much the starters of this, though, because Together started in '99 and slash 2000, right?
Yeah, we filmed in 98. I think it aired in 1999, February, if I'm not mistaken. And then 2000 is when we started filming the series.
The reason
Don't
I
quote
brought
me.
Oh, but the reason I brought that up too is because a year later, I mean, you guys are so influential that other animations like Simpsons and even Fairly Odd Parents were so inspired by the parody of boy bands. There's a clip actually I want to show you. This actually is an episode from The Simpsons that aired in February of 2001, a day before the Together season 2 episode Love Child was aired. And I want to share this clip with you because I feel like this clip right here was influenced by Together. Just my personal opinion.
Awesome.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get. Let me just go ahead and get it up and share screen again. I just want to share and get your reaction towards it. All right, here we go. Just let me know when everyone sees it. Can you see?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. I feel like this was inspired by Together.
You love to say we're real funky, but not threatening. The best band in the world, but we give it all up for that special girl. You're that special girl.
So I just had to share that because I felt like that, like back then, again, this was 2001, and boy, like you guys were like the modern day Spinal Tap for boy bands. So I just want to get your reaction towards that.
That's hilarious. I don't know. I can't speak to whether that we truly influenced them or not, or any of the parodies since. But I mean, we certainly were early to the game. So I'd be honored if I did find out that anybody from Simpsons even knew who we were. That's pretty epic.
And I'll tell you one thing too, because you mentioned NSYNC before, though. Actually, that was the same episode that NSYNC actually guest starred in the episode.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think I alluded to before, I don't watch much TV. I mean, even when I could afford it, I just never watched a whole lot. It looks like I got some going back and watching to do. But NSYNC, incidentally, all the guys from NSYNC really understood that we were not being critical of them.
They didn't take
And
it personal.
they didn't. Not all boy bands at the time had the same reaction, but they definitely got the joke. And whenever we would see them at award shows or appearances or whatever, we'd all be hugs, and they just thought we were the funniest thing, since sliced bread. And then, of course, Justin goes on into SNL and does all the hilarious, spoof things that they did. I won't say it to keep it child friendly, but the thing in the box. Um, and of course, I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that we could, ultimately take credit for it. But I mean, the coincidence is there. So,
Totally.
Have you shown your sons episodes of Together or the movie?
so I don't have a whole lot of the episodes, and what I did have was on VHS, and what I had on VHS, most of it burned in the fire. Now, that being said, I think you can find it on YouTube, some of
Yes.
it.
I was watching some earlier.
Yeah, and I have the movie on DVD. So they've seen that. They've seen maybe an episode or two. It's really funny. My youngest son especially has been going crazy over the music, but that's only because, and this is kind of a big announcement. Um, I've re-recorded The Hardest Part of Breaking Up and Before We Say Goodbye recently. And that story is I was contacted by this musician who's actually a full-time track coach in Boston. He's a really neat guy. His name's Mark Johnson. He goes by Marky J, I believe, on Instagram. And he came up with this idea of recording a Together song, and he wanted to be a part of it, but he somehow got Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC, Jarrett from Bowling for Soup, the band,
Great band.
myself and Alex together. And not in one room. It happened at different times, but I flew out to Boston and we re-recorded it, and it's actually going to drop at the end of September this month, 2025.
That's
So
awesome.
Cool.
it's coming out. I don't even know. I probably could get in trouble for it, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway.
We don't want you to get in
Um,
trouble.
yeah, well, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I mean,
Just put the top hat on.
yeah, I put the.
Yeah, we won't get in trouble, right?
I'll just play a little bit,
Okay.
but can you hear it? No,
I can't hear it.
No.
no, you can't. Okay.
I'll tune in for it though, for sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. You'll have to listen for it. I believe it'll be on Spotify, all the big distribution channels. It came out great, and it was weird because there were some parts that I did in the original that, Chris Kirkpatrick did, or, Jarrett, or, we just kind of switched things up. Alex did most of the rap, but actually in the hype part in the beginning, which was originally Alex, became me. Um, and it was fun. And they used, or Mark used the producer or a producer, one of the main producers from LFO, Light Funky Ones. And which is really cool for me because the first live performance that Together did was at a high school with LFO. So
Really?
we did a co-show. The high school won this huge competition, and somehow the winners of the competition, this high school, got a free concert by Together and LFO. And it was our first performance. So it was kind of like cutting our teeth. And so we got to hang out with those guys, and they were absolutely amazing human beings. And it's just heartbreaking, that they lost two of their members as well. But anyway, so it was neat. It was kind of like this full circle thing that came back. So their producer, helped us re-record this song, and then Before We Say Goodbye, I don't believe Chris Kirkpatrick sang on. It's just me, Mark, who put it together, and Alex and I. But it was fun, and so ever since I recorded those, my youngest son is walking around the house constantly singing the songs, and we put it on in the car. And it's
cool.
funny because I don't think anybody in Portugal is familiar with Together. Maybe they are, unless they're expats. But we'll be blasting these songs riding down the street, which is hysterical. Something I would never do in the United States. It seems like the most self-congratulatory, thing you could possibly do. Or hey guys, look at me. but I got no problem doing it in this like, this place where nobody's ever heard of us. So it's really fun to see it through their eyes. And of course he's a teenager and this music is tailor-made for, a 13-year-old to laugh their faces off.
Did you guys record videos of you recording the song? Is there going to be a music video for that?
We didn't, but that's a great idea. I'm gonna suggest that. And it would be really cool if we could get, everybody in one room at the same time, or at least on a Zoom, which would be neat.
And just get
But
all the goofiness, all the great sides of everybody.
That
Because
would be
yeah,
that whole team sounds awesome.
yeah, it's I
dream
mean,
team.
Jarrett's hilarious. I mean, so
Yeah.
is Chris. In fact,
Yeah.
Chris
I
was
follow Jared. He's really funny.
yeah, they're all hysterical, which is why they went for it. And a good friend of mine was willing to be in it, and he's with Dashboard Confessional, Chris Caraba. And I mentioned it to him, but we just couldn't, figure out the timing to make it work. But if this thing takes off, who knows? We could do, the whole album with cameos, which would be absolutely
Yeah,
amazing.
cameos and everyone will be jumping in.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
That
That
was
would be awesome to watch.
badass. We have a couple more questions before we wrap up here too. And one of the questions I definitely had to ask you, and I asked this. This is gonna be a silly question. I asked this at every single star we have, and you're no exception to the rule, Evan. Now, whenever like there's times where like I would not eat until like dinner time, like I would fast until dinner time. But when I'm not, I'm an absolute foodie, and I know that Together was a huge production like, set. So I was wondering what the catering scene was like on the set of Together, and what was your favorite meal in catering?
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I was a big fan of catering. What's so funny is I am not like a big foodie. Like I love food, but for me it's just for, eat for fuel, really.
Oh,
But we were spoiled. I mean, they treated us right. And there's catering, and then there's also the craft table is what they call it. I don't know why it's such weird terminology to call it the crafts table. But
craft
anyway, yeah, and there was always something I'd never seen, which is funny you mentioned that, until I did Together, which was they had Nutella always. And I don't know if this was a Canadian thing. They were really into I'm like, who eats Nutella? I'd never seen Nutella in my entire life. And so I started doing this thing where every time I saw Nutella, I'd swipe a bottle and bring it to my trailer. I'm like, this stuff's delicious. Um, yeah, what was my favorite meal? That's when I got really into breakfast burritos. I mean, it's just random. It's probably not the most exciting thing, but I mean, I would literally have them wrap everything that you could possibly find in the kitchen up into a burrito. And, I'd shove that thing down my gullet. Now I had to be careful because they were constantly making us take off our shirts, especially my character, um, which like I've always kind of taken fitness relatively seriously, but I was never like a bodybuilder and never considered myself like me in 98 degrees. I wouldn't have made the cut. You know what I mean? Because those guys are ripped. And so I remember being sort of self-conscious about, can I really eat all this food, or do I have to like, I could see myself like really worrying about it. So it's funny. I never really thought about that
They
because I
put
was
the
like, any minute they're going to be like, let's just make him take off his shirt and that'll be the joke. And I'm like, and it did get to be a joke where I would walk into a room and for no reason just take off my shirt. And because that was Jerry's character, he's just like, all about being, a serious boy bander. And so anyway,
Well, we have before I pass the question along to my sister though, another question I have for you as well, so is like what important teachings or lessons did you take with you during your time on Together, at with you during your career or even in life itself?
ooh, man, that's a good one. Um, this one's going to be specific to me and my personality, the first part anyway, which is to not take everything so seriously. When I got Together, I was hyper aware of how lucky I was, first and foremost. I didn't feel worthy. I had a little bit of imposter syndrome, maybe a lot of imposter syndrome. And so I knew it was my big break. It was certainly the most money I'd ever made. And I didn't want to ruin it. And I took everything so seriously. I can honestly say I missed a lot of the enjoyment that was there. And I'm not talking about the trappings of doing, being in a TV show or a movie or whatever. I never cared for the attention. People find that weird, but it's true. I never did. In fact, it made me feel a little uncomfortable. Um, and the money I never spent. And, I've lost as much money as I've ever made in bad investments. So that's in my book as well, if you ever want to read about tragedy. Um, but to be honest, I think I was so intense. I was that typical grind and grind and grind of it's a very American culture thing to do. And man, did I take it seriously. So I wish I would have enjoyed myself a little bit more. And uh, and the other part is to really cherish the people you're with always. And of course, this goes back to unexpectedly losing Mike. And, you know, he was a really big part of my life outside of the show. I worked with the Michael Cuccione Foundation for a long time, and tried to spread the word. And um, it really hit me because I was young enough to really for that to be my first big loss like that. And I've never taken it for granted since. So, I always prioritize time and being present. So I'm not the guy that's going to be on my phone when I'm with somebody else, especially with my kids. I'm not the person who's going to be letting my mind go super anxious about life's problems. I do. I mean, I certainly do. But if I'm with somebody else, it's my calming presence. And I know you as a mother, I know you probably experience the same thing. It's like, the whole world can erupt, but then you see your child's face and you're like, my God, I've got this one moment here. And
Yeah.
it's made me appreciate truly, the time with my dad that I have left. My mom's passed, unfortunately. Um, yeah, so I think those would be the two lessons. Not to get too dark, but it certainly happened then. I mean, Together really had those two life lessons for me. And I didn't realize the not taking myself too seriously until I feel like too late. I went through a large part of my career just going, Evan, you gotta get to the next rung on that ladder. And my God, and when it finally hit me, and it was when I had kids, I was like, what are you doing? None of this is worth
It's
anything.
gonna make you slow down for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether you want to or not, that they're doing that.
Yeah, and embracing it, you got to surrender. You can't not embrace it because you're just going to drive yourself and them crazy, more
Right.
importantly.
Totally. And everything you said was just beautiful, sir. And before I get to my final question and comment though, Big Sis, Liz, your final comment or question, this is the time now. You say anything you like. You could ask questions, you could do both. Floor is yours, sis.
Thanks, P. I want to thank you for your time, for listening to me, and for talking. This has been awesome and definitely a life-changing experience. The question I'm gonna leave with is if you can do together in this era, like let's say Jerry, how many years later, do you think he'd still be the same character, or do you think he's developed as you've developed?
Wow. Definitely not the same character. He would have developed. It's funny because, and it's not going to happen, but I'm not putting a whole lot of faith that it might happen. But I actually wrote up a treatment to do sort of a follow-up sequel movie. Um, and not that I have rights to do it or anything else. I just kind of did it as a fun thought experiment. It started when I was asked to re-record together, and and so I actually did a thought exercise for all the characters, kind of where they are now, and I envisioned Mickey being Mickey Park being a DJ, being forced to play all his old hits and being embarrassed about it, and Jerry's became a realtor, which closely aligns to my world, kind of, diverting into real estate investment and that sort of thing. Um, I definitely think he would have evolved. I think any good sequel has an evolution, and a great example of that was, I think, to recent memory, was the Maverick Top Gun movie follow up. I thought that was one of the best sequels ever done to stay true to the original while and a nod to all the things that made that movie great while still adding a fresh, evolution of the character.
That's what
Um,
makes a good sequel.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I definitely think he'd definitely be grayer. I'd envisioned a spinoff at one point where Jerry O'Keefe goes and does, tries to do country music. I'd even wrote a song called "Sockin' My Chaps."
Oh my
Um, and this was before AI could do a better job of it. Yeah, so Yeah, he definitely would have evolved, and I think he, along the lines of him always being he was the one that had the girlfriend, right? And so that was the big through line was his dating drama. It would become Jerry, the family man, and dealing with how to cope with, having kids and mortality and all that stuff.
I think it would be interesting to see Jerry with kids in the show and they're trying to start their own band and he's like, no, I got to show you how it's done. This is how it's done. These are the moves I was taught.
Right, right, right. Or, being cringy, like, Dad, that's so cringy. But then he actually comes out and like does this big show at the end and they're just like, oh, he's cool after all. It's that typical, Hallmark movie ending. I
Right.
think it would be fun. I actually mentioned it to my agent. And right now Hollywood's in kind of a little bit of a quagmire. Streaming has changed things. There's all kinds of issues. There was a huge strike that really upended a lot of projects and people's careers even. And I did mention it to my agent. We still talk now and then, and he's like, actually, I believe there was an announced movie called Boy Band. I want to say with Hugh Jackman and maybe Ryan Reynolds, and so I know there's a desire to see something of the boy band era come back in some form, and
Yeah.
so maybe
Well,
there will
look,
be an
look at
appetite.
Backstreet Boys. Backstreet Boys are on tour again. You guys could definitely go on tour again.
Yeah, we've been asked. In fact, there was a. It's just impossible for us to get quote the band back together due to different life situations of the surviving members. But I think a one-time movie deal or movie shoot over a course of a month could possibly work. It's just life kind of lifes and you end up in different places and everybody's kind of got different things going on and but I think the right time and for a short period of time we could make it happen. And by the way, I've a friend who just saw the Backstreet Boys in Vegas and they crushed it. They are
Oh
crushing
yeah.
it.
Yeah,
And
their videos online are outrageous.
it goes to show like, you can be in your 50s and they're probably in their 60s. That was a big joke. Like, so I was 30 playing an 18-year-old. And so that worked perfectly. And those guys, they were always encouraged to act and be younger. In fact, I think maybe even their actual birthdays were a trade secret for a long time.
Look at the movie Grease. We expected them to look like 18-year-olds. They were like 40 or 50.
Exactly, exactly. So it works. And but they're out there doing these crazy moves still. And I'm like, all right, power to you. Now I'm waiting for NSYNC to get back together and do their thing, but we'll
Yeah.
see if they can rope Justin back into the mix. I'm sure
Uh,
sure that'd be a challenge.
I'll say one thing too, actually, because an interesting fact about the Backstreet Boys, though, and I mentioned this to you, Evan, too, and I don't know if I told you this list, but the member Howie, though, and I could be wrong about this, but what I saw online, he's actually related to another person who's very musically inclined, though. He passed away, though, and that is Bob Dorough, who was actually one of the lead singers of Schoolhouse Rock with Jack Sheldon.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I looked up. He's like, actually, Bob is his uncle, I believe.
Oh my gosh.
So, like, even from the start, Howie was musically inclined because his uncle was musically inclined.
That's crazy. It's a very small world. There, I met two of the songwriters because I lived for a long time in Nashville, Tennessee, and I met two of the songwriters for our songs in Nashville, just walking down the street. And they're like, I didn't look exactly the same, like I look like I do now, more or less. And they're like, wait a minute. I think they heard my voice. I've got a very distinct Kermit the Frog type voice. And they're like, Evan Farmer, Jerry O'Keefe. And I was like, I mean, I get that time to, no, I'm just kidding. But they were like, oh no, I wrote that song Sister. And I'm like, oh my God, yes. I mean, we would record with these people and meet them and work with them for like 2 days. And so, but that would happen all the time. In fact, the guy who wrote Rub One Out, which was by our uh, counterpart, Whoa, he lives in New Orleans, or in not New Orleans, in Nashville and I would see him actually at real estate meetups of all things. Um, yeah, it's a small world. There's always like 6 degrees of separation. It's more like one or two, especially in the industry where you combine music and television. It's a very small group of people that cross both barriers.
Cool stuff. And I'm gonna ask my question soon, but before I do, sis, do you have any final comment?
Nope, that was it for me.
Okay, so my final question for you, Evan, is and this could be the final question I ask every single guest star, and that is there any advice that you would like to give to the viewers watching at home? Now, sir, of course, this my show is open forum, open mic night, so I am passing the proverbial microphone to you. The floor is yours, Mr. Farmer. You can say anything you like.
Call your mom and dad and thank them. It's a hard, hard job. Um, yeah, wow, be kind. You know, this world is getting crazy. It's getting tough to live in for a lot of people. And there's always somebody going through something much harder than you that you don't know about. And I've lived long enough to see that firsthand, to experience it firsthand. Um, and I know I'm not in any kind of platform way, you know, haven't done great things in my life for humanity. Um, but it's just so important. And I think that comes more from being a dad than anything else and experiencing life because it's just so tough. It's tough to be a human. Um, and man, just a little kindness goes a long way. And I see a lot of it. I see it every day in my life here. You know, I'll tell you, this is kind of cool. And I was able to kind of point it out to my son. We were down the street at a cat sanctuary, of all things, here in Portugal, and my son loves animals, and we were feeding the cats. And this woman comes out, sits on a park bench, and she's got a cast on her arm. She's, I would guess, in her mid to late 60s, and she just is sobbing on this park bench. And my son, my wife, and I were there, and we saw her, and I was kind of frozen. I'm like, "What do you do?" You know, and my assumption was that she had broken her arm. Well, my wife is such a beautiful soul. Without hesitating, she walks up to this lady, sits down on the bench, puts her arm around her, and even though my wife does not speak fluent Portuguese, she manages to ask her if she's okay, if she needs anything. And my son and I were sitting there just watching this beautiful thing happen. And 15 minutes later, my wife comes back and we get in the car and we drive away. And she tells me, she's like, this woman just found out that her father passed away. He lives in Brazil. She can't afford to go see him. And, you know, she just needed a hug. And it broke me how beautiful of a moment that was. And that doesn't happen enough. Um, so paying it forward, all that stuff that's super cheesy and people, you know, are like, "Oh yeah, you know, it sounds good, you know. I'll go to Starbucks and pay for the person behind me tomorrow or the toll or whatever." Just those opportunities, those moments of kindness, man, if we could get more of that going, that'd be really epic. And, you know, we don't have a whole lot of time here. None of us do. And so you got only a few opportunities. So,
Beautifully and sweetly well said, sir. And before we wrap up, there's two things I just want to say too. First of all, my final comment to you will always be this, and I just want to say that thank you for not only this amazing interview, sir, but I just want to say that you have this incredible gift, Evan, where you can take a 35-year-old something fan like this dude right here and bring him way down here, make him feel like that 11-year-old playing video games, vibing to together while doing so. Um, with that being said, too, I want to end on a more. I want to end like on a like I like to give the guests a little piece of flattery before they go. So I have a surprise for you and my sister, and that is probably the one of the best together music video songs in the world. "Breaking Up Is Hard Enough." So I want to share that video with you both because I thought it was in the top three greatest together songs of all time, my opinion.
amen.
Okay. Sorry if I'm a little thing. I'm just it's just a little just a little nervous interviewing you. So it's like 11-year-old me is like coming out.
No, you're crushing it. I think you're nervous because you're about to get married.
That's it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Can everyone see?
It's up.
Okay,
Yep.
here we go.
Together because their song was playing when my boyfriend gave me my first CD. Since I've seen your face, long since I've been the first bench. Something you miss, your face. I back my face before I can really miss.
You had my heart, you stole my attention. You're my life, my sweet action. It's getting back.
Hey Doug, you plus me equals jail time.
So tell me, girl, do I have to say please? Once that's right, and I trust you alone, I call you a girl. What? You ain't supposed to be here. This sucks. Went down with that. The heart breaking up. It's getting back. Up with a girl, but she keeps you stuck. You got stuck with that. I don't know, man. Something wrong. You know what I'm saying? Something wrong with that.
Mickey Park. Mickey Park.
Mickey Park up in this mud. We got 1, 2. 2 plus 3, it doesn't equal us. Oh, I know I gotta take a bus. Girl that I can trust. And my counterpart.
I'm voting for together because Mickey Park is my family.
It's getting back. The heart breaking up. It's getting back. Can I join the band?
No. Yeah, in all seriousness, thank you for an amazing episode. I mean, that again just brought back so many memories. I remember watching this numerous times with my sister, like when this first aired.
Oh man, this is great. I hadn't seen any of this stuff in so long. That was hilarious. And yeah, you've been flattering me through this whole thing. So thank you for
Thank you.
making my day, my week, my month, my year.
And I gotta just give my thank yous. I want
All of
Good.
it on YouTube too. The whole series is up, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
I'll
I'll have
send
to watch it.
I'll send you both the links to it, where you have full access to it. But I want to thank you again, Evan, for coming on for this wonderful interview. Thank you, Elissa, for coming on. Like, if there was anybody I wanted to do the show, it would be you. There would be nobody else but you because of how much knowledge you have for Together. And the reason I'm a Together fan is because of you. Uh, and I want to say thank you again, Evan. I'm gonna work on this as soon as we get the thing. But you have an amazing night, and you and your family have a wonderful night. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
You too, Elisa. Nice to meet you. And
Me
God
too.
bless. Congrats on the wedding again. That's fantastic. It's great news.
Thank you, sir. I'm excited, and again, this was a total honor. And 11-year-old me is coming out right now, and I apologize for that.
Perfect. We all should be younger. It's Benjamin Button time. That's
Yeah.
good deal.
But you have a wonderful night. Thanks again, sis. Everyone, take care and have a great night.
Good night.
Night.